No, and
it's like you and me and the Sixers here. We don't agree. Kelly and Jenkins are they sound like they are about where we are.
And Chip Kelly's about as stubborn as me, so he's not changing. He's not changing his ways, and he believes in his methodology, and he believes in the efficacy of that methodology. And Malcolm Jenkins, remember, this is not a traditional. I talk about it all the time. It's not a traditional NFL environment, and he came from a traditional environment, and he believes that aspect, that way of doing things when it comes to accountability is better than what Chip Kelly believes. And obviously the head coach is going to win on that one. But to me, the most interesting aspect of it is Malcolm Jenkins. You can call him a star. He's been the best overall football player for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. He's been one of the 2 or 3 best safeties in football. And more than that, he is the epitome of Chip Kelly's culture. He's a leader. He's a well-spoken guy. He is one of the go-to people in the locker room. He's one of the people Chip Kelly leans on. So the fact that he kind of walked at least a little bit away from the party line isn't Kelly.
Yeah, that's where, as you wrote, he took a little step off the reservation here. Is this the first sign of an established? Kerry Williams, I don't want to say was established, but, he was a veteran. He had won a Super Bowl. But Jenkins has kind of established himself as a leader here and a guy that, everybody can always go to try to get the concrete story or, where this team is. Is this the first sign maybe that there is some sort of crack between players and coaches?
Yeah, I think so, because you mentioned there have been other guys, but those guys are all gone. And, when Kerry did that, he's not a leader on this team. He was, for lack of a better term, he was a very mouthy guy, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what Chip Kelly wanted. And I actually – when he popped off about practice, I actually wrote the next day after he did it, that was the end of his tenure in Philadelphia. It might not be this week, but after the season, he was gone. And sure enough, if you don't step with that party line, Chip's not going to put up with it, especially if you're not a leader on this team. The interesting aspect of this is Jenkins is not only a heck of a football player, he's right there with DeMeco Ryans and Jason Kelsey as one of the leaders of this team. So it's different than Kerry Williams. It's different than Deshaun Jackson and Brandon Boykin.
Well, John, for the people,
all of those guys.
Yeah, for the people out there who aren't sure of what Jenkins even said, can you kind of bring to light where Jenkins started this and how it got to Kelly and where it stands now? Because I think that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit, that Jenkins made these comments, and it wasn't really out there a whole heck of a lot.
Well, he was talking about accountability and mistakes and how the Eagles kind of pointed out. And I think there's a two-pronged thing about it. When the Eagles have practice, in other NFL practices, you'll see coaches stop it if there's a mistake and teach right on the field. The Eagles don't believe in that. They believe on filming everything. And then when they go into their meetings, they'll point out in particular mistakes. They're all about reps, getting as many reps as humanly possible. And then what Jenkins, the bigger part of his issue was during the season, as we're in now, when people make mistakes on the field, it's not pointed out in team meetings. It's pointed out in positional meetings. And he doesn't believe that there's enough accountability in front of, or almost like self-legislation in the locker room, because guys, maybe you don't understand that in the regular workplace, but in football it's always been everybody gets together, and sometimes you're embarrassed by it during film sessions. If you make a bad mistake, but a coach will put you on blast, and all of a sudden you want to get a little bit better for your teammates, not only the team, but you don't want to be, for a lack of a better term, embarrassed in front of your teammates. Jenkins thinks that's a better way. Kelly thinks his way, where every position group is broken down and the position groups handle it. He thinks that's the better way. And you can make an argument on both sides.
Well, I don't think there is, because Kelly today brought up other he actually mentioned, he went Andy Reid on us. I mean, he brought Andy back into the conversation and saying, well, Pat did it when he was the coach, and Pat worked for Andy and Billy Davis. They've all done it this way. So I don't know that there is a right or wrong way, but if one of your players who's a leader comes out, it sounds like Kelly is scrambling right now because he understands that people are questioning him. And this goes back to another situation I want to get into with John where, there was a report yesterday that he addressed the team about all the rumors. And he said, I'll be here as long as Jeffrey Lurie will have me. And then he gets asked today, like, hey, you did this. That's a pretty nice step. Why did you feel you have to do that? And he's like, well, I didn't have to do that. I didn't do that. It's almost like you get you get yourself, he got applauded for doing something that he should have done. And then he gets complimented for it and doesn't want the compliment.
Yeah, and you never know where it stops, the disingenuousness stops, and the real begins with Chip Kelly. I've often said he will contradict himself in the same press conference at times. And you're right, you point that out. And I disagree with his assessment that Andy did it the same way and Pat did it the same way. And I think he got kind of caught in that because, he kept mentioning why would Matt Tobin, and he used Matt's name, care about, what the free safety does. And I gave him credit. He's probably right. An offensive player doesn't care what a free safety has to do and vice versa. But a defensive lineman should, and a linebacker sure should. So at least you should break it down offensively and defensively because linebackers especially have to work in concert with the defensive backfield and even the defensive line because the pass rush complements pass coverage and all of that. And I think that's what Malcolm was talking about. But to point out Matt Tobin, that was just disingenuous because he was trying to stick it out like it doesn't make sense. And that's what Malcolm was trying to get to. So unfortunately, Chip gets in these wormholes where he tries to do this and out-logic people. And a lot of times it doesn't work.
Yeah, and right now it sounds like a situation, John, where not only doesn't work, it's teetering on people picking sides. And when people start to pick sides like that, that is when it seems like you have dissension and you have problems. And either, again, you start weeding guys out that aren't buying in to the point that you're going to have nobody left, right? I mean, at what point do you start to pick most of the times you say, well, you can't fire all the players. Chip's trying to fire a lot of the players that don't buy in. At what point do you turn around and say, man, if you're Jeffrey Lurie, man, my coach is really weeding out a lot of guys here who aren't doing a lot of things wrong here. They're just expressing some interest in maybe changing some things or looking into doing something in a different light.
Yeah, not only that, when you get to a Malcolm Jenkins, he's virtually bulletproof. You can't criticize him as a player. You can't criticize what he does off the field. He helps in the community. He's a great team spokesman. As a football player, he's everything Chip Kelly preaches about, both on and off the field. Yep. So from that aspect, he's almost bulletproof. And if he does, after the season, go in a different direction, particular position, because Malcolm doesn't agree with some of his machinations, it'll look really, really poorly on Chip Kelly, and it will come across as holding a grudge and, something we always talk about with him. He's letting his ego override making good decisions, which I think happens too much with this football coach. And people are questioning him. And it goes, I often talk about the sleep monitors because that was just a dumb decision. It really was. And you have to understand going from a college environment where you have this professional environment where guys get paid and obviously they have a union that's going to fight for their rights. You have to know right off the bat this is not going to work. This is an invasion of privacy. People deserve to have their home life. And if they don't want to be hooked up to a sleep monitor, they don't have to be. Now, if they volunteer for it, that's fine. But I predicted the day that came out, the NFLPA would stop it, and they stopped. And Chip Kelly should understand these things. These are some of the landmines. They might not seem like big problems, but Jeffrey Lurie should have realized this stuff. These are not good decisions from the get-go. To understand basic tenets of your particular position, and people are starting to question the Tuesday practices, which are not the traditional model of the NFL. And so when you bring in new ideas and they don't work, people are going to question you. And Chip's got to do a better way of handling it.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's get a quick update on the field with the practice. Bradford today looks like he's back and apparently ready to go.
Yeah. During a setback, he's going to play, and I can't imagine. We always talk about Chip. He's not going to say anything, and he shouldn't, for whatever competitive advantage there's going to be. But he talked after practice. It's pretty clear that he's going to play.
I want to ask you about, and I want to ask you about something that you said last week, I think, regarding if he didn't play last week, that you thought that was a sign that Bradford wouldn't be back next year. Do you still feel that way?
Oh, yeah. I felt that way dating back weeks. I think Chip's already made his decision long term. This is not the quarterback he and he's going to be here. They're going to go in a different direction, whether it's drafting a quarterback or whether it's trying to make a move to get Colin Kaepernick or even RG3, Johnny Manziel, any name you want to throw out there. I don't think there's any question the Eagles are going back to square one at the quarterback position.
All right. Obviously, Ryan Matthews, no practice today. It seems that he's probably not going to be ready to play again this week either.
Yeah, I mean, it's lingering, and that's one of the concerns we talked about with Ryan Matthews and why you can't count on him as being the bell cow back. I mean, concussions are strange things. I mean, one player's back the next week, and another player's after the third week for Ryan. Hadn't been able to get cleared on the practice field. You remember Malcolm Jenkins, when he got injured in-game, played the concussion, was back at practice. So it varies from person to person, the severity of the injury, and obviously Ryan had a pretty severe one because he's still not cleared.
Yeah, and obviously that is a big loss for their offense because, as we talk a lot about with Murray, he just, just not a great fit for this offense. He doesn't offer a lot of explosion in the offense, and that's something that the last couple of weeks, even though the defense has been awful, the offense has really had a limited amount of big explosive type plays that they had, minimally at least, when Matthews was in the game. And obviously, we'll talk more about the game coming up tomorrow with John here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Well, we talked yesterday about hoping that Philly welcomed Kobe pretty well, and I was there last night, John. It was pretty cool. It was a pretty good environment there, and I think the fans did a good job supporting and cheering for Kobe. No boos for Kobe last night. In fact, they opened up with an MVP chant for him.
And I'm taking some credit, as they did with PG on Twitter. I said I told them to keep it classy, and they kept it classy.
They did.
I'm proud of the Philadelphia fans.
Not only did they keep it classy, it was a really nice night with his high school coach there, and obviously with him opening the game the way he did. It was a pretty cool atmosphere in there, and hopefully someday soon we'll be able to have nights like that more often.
Yeah, hopefully someday soon it'll be for the home team.
Absolutely.
But anytime, it's always fun to see a great player in any sport when they're coming in for the last time. And obviously, Kobe's even further along because of the Philadelphia roots and the fact that his dad played for the Sixers and all of that stuff. And, he credits the Sonny Hill League as the turning point in his basketball career because way back in the day, he struggled in that, and he kind of figured out the work ethic part of it because I always think people don't put enough in there. There are a lot of guys who have the athletic ability to be stars and, be at the NBA, NFL, whatever sport, but the things that set the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants apart is the work ethic. And a lot of younger players need to understand that, and unfortunately not enough do.
John McMullen, everybody, and, of course, tomorrow we'll talk more about the Eagles as they get ready to take on the New England Patriots. All right, man, we'll talk to you then.
Hey, thanks, Mike.